Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top stories that we are tracking for you this evening. Apple CEO Tim Cook opens doors to India's first retail store in Mumbai's Bandra Kurla complex as hundreds wait to get their first experience of an Apple store. Second store scheduled to be inaugurated in the capital day after as the company kicks off an expansion plan for the country. Markets end with minor cuts for the second day in a row as volatility persists, but the mid-caps outperform the blue chips, ending close to 1% higher. Media and IT stocks rise the most. China's economy grows 4.5% in the first quarter, beats expectations, marks the highest growth since the first quarter last year. Crude oil prices see some recovery. Brent holds steady at $85 a barrel. Just Dial gains after posting record margins in Q4, beats estimates on all counts, but TV18 slips as profits decline on scale-up of new verticals. Network 18 also fails to deliver, reports a loss in Q4. The Supreme Court hears pleas seeking legal sanctity to same-sex marriages. The centre argues against the move, saying several laws would be made unworkable. Adds that legislative intent has always been to only recognise marriage between a man and a woman. The court pushes for equality, observes the society is evolving. World Trade Organization rules against India in an ongoing dispute with the EU, Japan and Taiwan, says India violated tariff rules in the import of IT products. Government sources say the ruling would have no immediate impact on imports from other nations. Adds that India will challenge the ruling. Jet Airways returns to skies remains unclear even as the airline completes 4 years of grounding. Time running out for the Jalan Kalrock consortium as the payment deadline nears. Sources say JKC has made no payments to creditors yet. The airline's air operator certificate is also set to expire on the 19th of May. Milk and milk products get costlier. Prices rise 15% in 15 months as dairy companies across the country hike prices. Industry players cite high demand for high-fat products, the rise in production costs and adverse weather as the key reasons. Maharashtra's opposition leader Ajit Pawar denies plans to move to the BJP, says he is and will stay with the NCP, accuses the media of spreading rumours without any reason. Pawar says the meeting with party MLAs which sparked rumours of a defection were routine. Kremlin reports about Putin's visit to Russian-occupied areas of Kherson and Luhansk in Ukraine, his second trip in less than 2 months. The Kremlin claims that Putin attended a military command meeting in the Kherson region. Four and a half years after it opened a store in a new country, Apple opened its first retail store here in India, underlining the tech giant's increased focus on India. This week also marks 25 years of Apple's presence here in the country. Apple CEO Tim Cook threw open the gates of the 28,000 square feet retail store in Mumbai's Bandra Kurla complex to a throng of expectant fans, some of whom had queued outside from last night itself. A second retail store will be inaugurated in the capital later this week. An Apple store is a one-stop shop for product sales, accessories and services. The store is spread across 2 levels with double-height ceiling, a floor-to-ceiling glass facade similar to Apple stores globally. The company's also pitched the BKC store as the world's most energy-efficient Apple store. Locations with a dedicated solar array and zero reliance on fossil fuels for store operations. So why is Apple looking at India? Well, it plans to curb its heavy dependence on China. The COVID lockdowns in China had severely impacted production and exports. Moreover, with geopolitical tensions adding to friction between the US and China, a need was felt by the company to make its supply chain more resilient and diverse. India has proved to be a strong performer with stable production. And finally, the cherry on the cake is the PLI scheme. There's also been a usually high amount of brand loyalty towards Apple products. One person was seen carrying a vintage Apple computer, which he said he bought in 1984. Another customer said he had not unboxed his iPod since 2005 and was looking to get Cook's autograph. My colleagues Mangala Malu, Shivani Garat and Zinia Baria get us all the highlights from the Apple launch.
Well, it's a cultural moment for India, an Apple store opening out here. Every country remembers the first McDonald's store, the first Starbucks outlet, or the first Domino's Pizza outlet. An Apple store is another important global institution, the opening of which generates a lot of excitement. And excitement it was. We had thousands of people queuing up, some, as early as last evening, who camped all night to be among the first few people to enter the Mumbai Apple BKC store. And they were welcomed by none other than Tim Cook himself. Tim Cook, in the previous conference call of Apple, has said that India is slowly becoming an important market for them. While in their overall scheme of things, India accounts for a little under 2% of revenues. But remember, reports suggest that last year the revenues from India for Apple grew by 50%. So, the growth runway that India offers is massive. And this in addition to the fact that a lot of the phones are now being produced and manufactured in India itself.
Store in itself is much different. So typically, globally, when you see or visit Apple stores, you get that standard white color. There is, of course, a hint of color. There is Hello Mumbai on the glass facade outside. Very, very Indian touch to the whole store. It's spacious. It's approximately 22,000 square feet store, and then you will get to experience a lot of things, lot of products placed on the table. Some of the colors which are not available at the Apple authorized resellers are available right here, including different kinds of straps for the Apple Watch, some different colors for your iPhone. The latest yellow color on the iPhone also is on display over here. Customers are walking in. Many of them have queued up early in the morning. One of the first customers to make a purchase purchased an Apple AirPod at the store as soon as he walked in. The awaited launch of Apple's flagship store has finally arrived. The fans have lined up to take a sneak peek of their favorite gadgets. Let's take a look at what they have to say and their excitement to the launch. As you can see, the Apple store has finally opened to one and all, and we have some Apple fans in the store here. Say hi. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, what do you wish to be when you grow up?
When I grow up, I want to buy the Apple company.
You want to buy the Apple company?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you like the launch today?
I liked it so much.
You really did? Did you get a picture with Tim Cook?
Yes.
Show me. The Apple store that has finally launched in Mumbai now. How do you feel, and have you picked up any products?
So I really feel that the Apple Store launched in India, Mumbai, BKC, the first Apple Store, which launched after 25 years in India. It is really great. It is a big gift by Apple this year to Mumbai and to the people of India, basically.
Fantastic. I was the fifth person to enter this, and Tim Cook had personally hugged me and gave me a selfie too. So it was a great experience for me. It made my day. Well, thank you.
How about you?
I've been waiting for this day since years, so you can imagine how overwhelming the feelings are. I mean, it's the first Apple store in India. That's too good.
Fans and smiles galore. But on to the day's trading action. A volatile session saw the Nifty and the Sensex end 0.25% in the red. However, mid-caps outperformed the blue chips today. The mid-cap index closed 1% higher. Media and IT stocks faring the best. Surbi joins us now with the details. Surbi, markets in consolidation mode.
Well, a very range-bound day of trade with the market in absolute consolidation mode, at least at the headline index level. Neither the bulls nor the bears really managed to make any headway. And that's because, apart from IT, today there were other pockets which were feeling the blues, so to speak, or feeling the reds, if I may say. Reliance, for instance, was under pressure throughout. There was some profit-taking on auto stocks after the recent run-up. Bajaj Auto, Hero Moto, those names were down. Lever was under stress. And banks themselves couldn't really hold up the market. There was a lot of selling in bank stocks around 130. So HDFC Bank, second day running after numbers, was under pressure. ICICI Bank was weaker, so was Kotak Mahindra Bank. Pharma is where the money is moving. The pharma index today was up 1.5%, and it's up almost 5% for the month already. There is an expectation that pharma earnings will be quite good because the pricing pressure in the US market seems to be easing off, and pricing in the Indian market will probably be better. So pharma is where the action is, and also mid-caps. The mid-cap index actually did much better than the frontliners today, and a lot of earnings-specific reaction kept coming in. So good reactions in the case of, let's say, an Angel One or a Just Dial. Poor reactions, let's say, in the case of Schaeffler or Quick Heal. And earnings really is the litmus test for this market as it looks out for more direction. Over the course of this week, towards the end of the week, actually, we'll hear from Reliance and ICICI Bank. And until then, perhaps the action remains extremely stock-specific and within the current trading range.
Surabhi, many thanks for joining us. Yes, big earnings expected. In the commodity market, crude oil prices saw some recovery from yesterday's lows after upbeat data came in from China. Investors are now concerned about a possible interest rate hike by the Fed. Brent continued to hover around the $85 a barrel mark. Milk and milk products continue to get costlier, with prices rising 15% in the last 15 months as dairy companies across the country have hiked prices. Now, industry players have cited high demand for high-fat products, a rise in production costs and adverse weather as the key reasons for the same. Manisha standing by with the details. Manisha, can we expect a further increase in prices?
Well, thank you for that, Shireen. That's exactly what the industry seems to be expecting. And I did speak to Mr. R.S. Sodhi of the National Dairy Association and Mr. Jain Mehta of Amul. And they both seem to expect that these are reasonable prices right now. And you need these prices to ensure that going forward, the farmers will continue to be interested in ensuring that there is more milk production coming in. When you look at the month of March and April, the expectation is that there has been better procurement than we saw last year. Mr. Sodhi continues that they did tell us that consumers are paying reasonable prices for dairy right now. We did not see retail prices increase for 3 years. And then, of course, in last 18 months, we've seen prices increase by 18 to 19%. He also told us that India has not seen a fall in the milk or product prices ever. So even if you are looking at higher flush season going forward after the Diwali and Dussehra, even if there is better production of milk, you will not see the milk prices go down because the input costs on the other side have continued to increase. So the milk prices perhaps will consolidate, but they will not come down. Also, when you look at the international milk inflation, that has been to the tune of 20 to 40%. So Mr. Sodhi also told us that the Indian prices in that sense, or Indian inflation for that sense, has been to the tune of 8 to 9%, so lower than the world average by many notches there. Amul today says that when it comes to their milk, the Amul Taza, the brand that sells the most, has seen a price rise by 6 times in last 4 years to an average of 6%, and that is not so much. And he also reiterated that it is important to ensure that the inflation to you is an income to farmer, and with the kind of input cost surge that we have seen, farmers do need to be given that much. The other important thing is that internationally as well, in the previous year, we have seen a lower demand, lower production of milk. So whether it's about Australia, which is a big producer, saw 4.5% of decline. New Zealand saw 1.5% decline. Even Europe milk production last year was lower. And much of Asia would be looking to India this time around for import, even as India is talking about import to ensure that the prices go down. So there's a lot of conversation right now. So your question that whether milk prices are coming down, they are not until Diwali. And then also we perhaps would be looking at consolidation and not a decline in prices.
Our flagship brand is Amul Taza Toned Milk. And in the last 4 years, we have increased the price only 6 times. So an average about 6%, which is more or less in line with the inflation. So by and large, the milk price increases are not as high as our producers would like it to be. But then it's a reality, and partly one can say that inflation to consumer is income to the producers. Having said that, the producers depend on the consumers for the market, and they are also equally concerned as the rest of the industry that if we increase our productivity, If we work on reducing the cost of production, the producer will also be happy and the consumer will also be happy.
Well, don't expect milk prices to ease anytime soon. That's the word in from industry. Now, the World Trade Organization has ruled that import duties imposed by India on certain electronic products are in violation of global trading norms. This ruling comes in an ongoing dispute with the EU, Japan and Taiwan. Sources say the ruling will not have an immediate impact on IT imports from these regions, adding that the government plans to contest the ruling. Abhimanyu joins us now with the details. Abhimanyu, how has India responded to this ruling and what really is the bone of contention?
Government sources have indicated that in all likelihood there is going to be no immediate impact of WTO's ruling on India's tariff treatment of ICT products imported from Taiwan, Japan and the European Union. In 2018 and 19, India had imposed an import duty on electronics products from several geographies, fearing cheap and substandard imports. Initially it was for China, but then it was extended to several other nations where there was an apprehension that substandard imports from China were being routed from these countries. WTO has passed a ruling stating that India is a signatory to ITA 1995 and cannot impose an import duty on several electronics goods. India in all likelihood is going to file an appeal before the WTO, citing the fact that several products which have been listed in this ruling didn't exist in 1995, and hence government sources have indicated that India has a strong case before the WTO. It remains to be seen how early the appeal is going to be filed and what arguments will be tendered, not just from India's side but also from the side of various other countries. Government sources have indicated that several countries had offered India to go for arbitration, but the Indian government in all likelihood is going to contest the ruling on its merits purely and is going to await WTO's decision in this regard.
Abhimanyu, many thanks for joining us. Time for us to head into a break, but up next, the Supreme Court hears pleas seeking the legal sanctity to same-sex marriages. The centre argues against the move, saying several laws would be made unworkable. More on that when we return. A 5-judge Supreme Court bench led by the Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud heard pleas on the legalization of same-sex marriage. The centre has argued that it is not appropriate for the courts to decide on this issue. The Supreme Court observed that there is an evolving consensus on an equal future. The hearing will continue tomorrow as well. Ashmit standing by with the live updates of what transpired in the Supreme Court. The hearing today has concluded. Of course, this will be taken up by the Supreme Court tomorrow, Ashmit. But explain to us, the Solicitor General making it clear that the courts had no business taking up this matter. It was for Parliament to legislate, but D.Y. Chandrachud, the Chief Justice, saying, no, we will hear this matter.
Indeed, in fact, the CJI was very clear that he will not allow any of the parties to dictate the nature of these proceedings, and that came in response to the Solicitor General saying that even before we get into the merits of the case on whether or not there should be same-sex marriage allowed, there's a preliminary objection being raised by the centre, the objection being that there should be absolutely no meddling in this issue by the judiciary. This is the exclusive preserve of the Parliament, of the legislature, and that was the preliminary objection. That has not been allowed yet. In fact, the Chief Justice continued with these proceedings, continued to allow the petitioners to make their submissions, which in fact led to the Solicitor General remarking at one point that this will compel the centre to think whether or not they will wish to participate in these proceedings. So strong comments, those from the Solicitor General, but not managing to impress the Chief Justice. He decided to continue and to allow the petitioners to make their submissions, led by Mukul Rohatgi. He was appearing for the petitioners in this case. He went on to argue that the centre's contention that this is an urban elitist concept is in fact misplaced, and that cannot be used to deny fundamental rights that fall to the LGBTQ community. He further went on to say that for the centre to argue that they constitute a minuscule minority then is a representation of the majoritarianism attitude, and that is simply not constitutionally sustainable, that the fundamental rights provided, right to life, right to privacy, the preamble, the way it is structured, clearly mandates that the burden falls on the centre, on the government to ensure that these rights are freely accessible and that there can be no distinction made between heterosexual couples and same-sex couples. So that's an argument that has been made. Today was just day one. We understand the 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court will continue hearing in this case tomorrow as well.
All right, Ashmit, we will check in with you on the proceedings tomorrow. Appreciate you joining us today. On to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Full-service airline Jet Airways has completed 4 years of being grounded. The airline was admitted to the NCLT for insolvency in June of 2019, and there's still no clarity on when it will return to the skies in its new avatar. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 the Jalan Kalrock Consortium is yet to make payments to lenders, even as the deadline is just a few weeks away. Madiha joins us now with more. Madiha, what's the status so far?
Well, 17th of April 2019 is when Jet Airways flew its last flight from Amritsar to Mumbai. Many have been hoping to see the airline back in air again, but the resolution process has been quite a lengthy exercise, and the key issue largely remains the same. The Jalan Kalrock Consortium, who had won the bid to take over the airline, is yet to receive the airline's ownership. And why? The reason is pretty simple. The consortium hasn't made any payments to the creditors so far. Now, banking sources tell us that the airline's ownership will only be transferred after the consortium pays 270 crore rupees to lenders as the first tranche of payment. And not just that, JKC is also required to pay 225 crore rupees towards gratuity and PF as ordered by the Supreme Court. The consortium has been in talks with lenders ever since the NCLT had refused to stay NCLT's order that had directed for implementation of the resolution plan. Now remember, NCLT had set 16th of November as the effective date for the plan and had directed JKC to pay the creditors the first tranche within 180 days from then, which is the 13th of May. So that's one deadline which is fast approaching. And then there's another one that Jet is staring at, a very crucial license needed for an airline to fly, which is the Air Operator Certificate, is expiring on the 19th of May. Renewing the AOC is not simple. It requires an airline to demonstrate its capability to run scheduled operations with the required fleet and staff, which Jet Airways doesn't have currently. So will JKC be able to turn things around before these deadlines and get the airline back in air? That's the key question right now, because time is clearly running out. We reached out to the Jalan Kalrock Consortium, but they're yet to respond to our query.
All right, Madiha, many thanks for joining us. And that's it then on this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news will continue when we return.
Let's you and me